Evening, David.
Evening, Adam.
And evening, everybody. Welcome to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast in a week in which the Royal Rumble has come and gone, thank Christ. We know who's going to WrestleMania, at least for the World Championship matches. Powerhouse Hobbs has debuted, or shall I say Royce Keys has debuted in WWE. We've had a phenomenal goodbye, at least in the WWE as well. I appreciate I may have frozen on my screen, but I can assure you I'm still here. For those, Macklin has been fired in TNA, and AEW have obtained a psycho killer who has already won gold in AEW. We're going to talk to that a lot more with, of course, my resident problem child, Dave Robinson, who has just come back from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, as the man that attacked Braun Breaker. How are you doing, Dave?
Really good, mate. How are you?
Oh, you must feel great knocking Braun Breaker out of that Rumble.
Oh, mate, I've got a lot to say about this Rumble. Not much. Not much of it is positive. Matty and Steve, you might have to bring a bit more positivity to what me and Adam might bring after that match, but
In
we'll
yeah,
get into it.
we will indeed. And as you course, as Dave just said, we have some guests on our show this evening from our podcast prediction league who are one result away from a perfect score. And that's Matt and Steve from the Wrestling Pedigree podcast. Evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
How are we doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, Steve. I understand that Matt should have listened to you last night.
He should always listen to me anytime the podcast or that we're doing the podcast predictions.
He should have done. It won away from a perfect score, which I said we have to congratulate, well, Cruising with Kayfabe and the Junkies podcast from getting every result right yesterday, which was rather annoying because they got 10%, 10 points extra. Anyway, right, let's get on with this. Is going to be fun. We're not going to start with the Royal Rumble, Dave, but what we are going to start with AJ Styles, David, and a match last night. We've gone for a little bit anticlimactical. I think although the podcast thing was a bit of a split between AJ and Gunther, who's going to win here. The thing that got me more than anything, Dave, was the end of this. He goes to take his gloves off and leaves them in the ring, and then he puts them back on again. And I know that, that the crowd really popped for that. But for me, David, that's an indication that perhaps he isn't finished, at least wrestling elsewhere.
Yeah, he and the WWE have been keen to stress that his WWE in-ring career is over. Um, Obviously, there's the relationship with TNA. So I think it would make a lot of sense to AJ to have one last, maybe not even run, but one last match. His final in-ring match, you could definitely see that being in TNA. And the relationship with WWE and TNA is obviously very good. The question for me is, does AJ have the AEW or New Japan run or appearances in between? This is his last year. We know that. I think AJ would make a fantastic producer for WWE, and I know that's something that's been discussed as well. So I'm sure he'd like to stay on good terms. Um, so it's whether that AEW, New Japan run, whether that would impact the future for him when he does take the gloves off and hang up his boots. So yeah, there's more matches in him yet. Where they are, I'd be interested to see what you and the boys think.
Let's find out. Steve, where do you see the phenomenal one in 2026?
In 2026, I see the phenomenal one, doing his last run in TNA.
Hmm.
I don't see it going any further than that. I think, he ends his career where he started his career. It's like perfect poetry.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with that one. Matty, though, should. And because let's face it, there's a few AEW stars that have already started stirring that pot a little bit in this. Should he end up in AEW? I mean, for me, I'm thinking Osprey, Omega, those types of matches that he could blow at minds. But is he in danger, as what David just said, is he in danger of them perhaps souring that relationship with the WWE if he did choose to go AEW?
I don't think he will. I think he has enough respect that he's done over the 25 years and more that he's done in professional wrestling. That if he did go to AEW for one match, I don't think WWE would get sour about it. I don't think he would go to AEW, but if he does, I want to be very selfish and himself versus Osprey at Owen Wembley.
Oh,
Yes,
yes, please. That'd be very nice. Considering that probably all of us will be there. In that, so if you are going, that means we're going to have to meet up. So we'll sort that out because we'll be there. Me and Dave and Rach and Dave, Kevin will probably be there as well. Dave, for
Yeah,
that
definitely.
we won't miss that at all. But one man, Dave, who did has jumped ship and has debuted in the WWE, and he debuted in the Royal Rumble, decent ish debut for him was Powerhouse Hobbs. They gave him the Powerhouse Hobbs star. The wall broke down. It's now Royce Keys. I believe there is a sentiment behind it. I did read somewhere, and forgive me, I can't remember why that name is there, but it is there for a reason. What did you make of his debut, and where do you see him fit in the early goings of WWE?
Yeah, I don't think it was a huge surprise that he appeared in the match. I think what was a surprise was the name Powerhouse Hobbs appearing on the screen, although it was temporary. And they addressing, I mean, they didn't mention AEW, but they did say that this guy, formerly known as Powerhouse Hobbs, so that was a bit of a surprise. I think he's one of the 30 at the Rumble that didn't come off worse going in. Not many come out better. But I don't think it could have gone worse for him, judging off how some of the other competitors were dealt with and positioned in the match. Horrible, horrible booking. I'll try and stay positive for as long as I can.
Don't,
But I
don't.
thought, no, I thought actually Royce Keys, Powerhouse Hobbs, I thought he was used fairly well, and they did do a good job on commentary of making a big deal of him. So yeah, a decent introduction to the company. How long that lasts remains to be seen, but what they did last night was okay, I thought.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. Matt, look, he's in here now. He's WWE. Where do you see him? What brand do you think he starts off with?
the way he got eliminated yesterday, I think he'll be Monday Night Raw. I
Mhm.
feel he will have probably a long feud with the Vision. I wouldn't mind seeing him versus Bronson Reed in the next few weeks for a build up. It's probably around Elimination Chamber, but yeah, I think that would be a really good start for him to get someone like a big man with a big name like Bronson Reed.
Yeah, I think so. I think someone like that would certainly work. Steve, when you look at this, and I don't want to, I am going to tarnish the crowd quite a bit today as well in this as well. But look, he debuted at the Rumble, fair enough. If this is somewhere else, and I'm thinking Chi-Town, I'm thinking Detroit, I don't know. If this is any, even if this is in another international country, hint, hint, the United Kingdom, um, does his reaction and does the would he have got a better? He did get a decent reaction. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he didn't, but the reaction would have been far better in the US or over here, for example, in the UK.
I mean, I completely agree. We know that Saudi is big on things that happened in the past. Maybe maybe a lot of what's current they're not as up on. Maybe they're not as up on AEW. They didn't know who Powerhouse Hobbs was. Um, but still, he got a decent enough reaction, and Maddie knows very well that my biggest love in wrestling is big meaty men slapping man meat, and just seeing him and all those big powerhouses go at it, it made my heart happy.
Steve, on the base of that, is he? We look at sort of AEW and we look at the generalization of an AEW roster. It's not powerhouse Hobbs. These are, there's always been, and Dave, we've spoken about this for years, how perhaps Tony Khan hasn't quite figured out how to quote unquote book the big men in AEW. So, Steve, in your opinion, is Powerhouse Hobbs in WWE a better fit for him going forward in his future?
Absolutely. I think WWE is and always has been the land of the big men. You're talking about guys like Andre the Giant, the Big Show, Paul White, even Hulk Hogan to an extent. WWE has always done really, really well booking those big talents. So I think having Hobbs, or I'm sorry, Royce Keys in WWE, it's going to be the best thing for him and his career.
Yeah, we will see. We will certainly see. But talking about someone now who, well, I mean, for those of you that watched last week, we had the 10 count podcast on, and we were talking to Jay Starr and Taipei, and we were asking about where do we see Tommaso Ciampa. I was like, maybe TNA. I think he should do the Indies, maybe go to NWA, do a bit of that. We all sat here and went, we don't think going to AEW right now, just due to the roster depth, was the right idea, Dave. Well, weren't we fucking wrong or what?
Yeah, yeah. What a debut. I mean, we
Yeah.
talk about, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things we thought went wrong in that Rumble match. But in terms of bringing somebody in and making them feel important and giving them absolute respect for what they've done in their careers, and an absolute banging theme tune as well.
Yes.
That was Tommaso Ciampa's introduction to AEW, and we close out the week with him being TNT champion. Now, I'm not saying necessarily you do that every time when you bring somebody new into the promotion, but I think it was justified in terms of the Psycho Killer, his history as well with Ring of Honor, his history with Mark Briscoe. That was a perfect introduction. Inspired booking and presentation. I absolutely loved it.
I thought it was great. Matt, on top of that, I mean, we saw the Rascals when they got there, they didn't, they got like a backstage interview, and it was like, and obviously we had the stuff with Trey Miguel go on in the background, and thankfully he's at TNA, and he thankfully didn't get fired during Feast of Fired last week. But was Tommaso Ciampa, and I look at AEW's, they have a great way of bringing people in. If you go back, Adam Cole and Danielson at the same time, Moxley coming through and doing what he did. They do have a habit of when the right with the right person to bring him in the way they did, and with Champa, they hit a home run.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I perfect theme song, um, perfect match for him, perfect opponent. I just feel with the book, I'm probably thinking a bit silly for this, but I think it's a nice shot from AEW to WWE to put a belt on Ciampa for just because he was chasing the US title before he left
Oh
WWE.
yeah.
So for them to just straight away put the title and TNT title on him, I think that was genius for him. Um, but some wrestlers are perfect for WWE, like we said about Royce Keys. Tampa is perfect for AEW for the way he wrestles and it's just his whole attitude. So I feel he'll be this Tampa will be, I think, be in the AEW World Title picture by end of this year.
Wow. Big one there to go at that high. Steve, with Champa, and again, we've mentioned, and we'll keep on going back to the blue in the face, the roster depth with AEW. And I mean, we have to talk about poor Jake Doyle quickly as well. I mean, he's been in there 2 weeks and he's torn his bicep and he's going to be out for a while. But is it going to, I mean, when do you see it, Steve, where does AEW soon, does Tony Khan soon have to make a choice whether he starts to maybe hard move this roster so that it gets the people the TV time every single week?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because like we've hammered home so many times, the roster is stacked so deep. What are you going to do with everybody that you have? Like you have some people that they just sit on the sidelines for months and months. There's going to come a time where you have to break it down into brands like WWE did, and it's just the way the business is working these days. And as somebody who grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, I hate it. I remember having those small rosters that everybody put on banger after banger. And it's just, it that kind of hurts my old soul a little bit.
We'll have to wait and see what happens with Champa. But so far, well, look, week one, perfect, and we'll see how long he holds that championship for. But now, Dave, there comes another question because this week, or last week, sorry, on TNA, Feast or Fired happened. Now, due to the TNA and their fantastic production botches, we knew that Eddie Edwards was going to have the World Championship match. And I did find out prior to Impact airing that Trey Miguel, thankfully, had got an international title opportunity because he'd just come back. So it left Eric Young and Steve Macklin, and that's where initially, when I first knew that Macklin was initially in this, I automatically went, he's the one that's going. But when it got to Eric Young and Macklin out of the two, then it sort of got my mind thinking a little bit, is it going to be Macklin? Is it going to be Young? Because you both could understand it. But it turned out to be Steve Macklin, Dave. So he's gone from TNA. And it begs the question, this week on Dynamite, we're not going to have yet another debut. And considering his wife is the Ring of Honor champion over at one of the TV champion, I think, in Ring of Honor, Deonna Purrazzo, is Macklin going to be all elite this week?
Yeah, quite possibly. I made the same link with Diana. Whether he turns up in Ring of Honor, perhaps. What's interesting with the Fist or Fired with TNA is the history of that stipulation and the fired element being legitimate. There's been three or four occasions where the competitor, in this case Steve Macklin, has been legitimately fired from the company. I think the last one was Yumura, is it? The
You're having bad
pronunciation
trouble.
of that
I
one.
normally do.
Yeah, yeah. And then you've got Ethan Carter as well, was legitimately fired. And there's been others, Chavo Guerrero. There are a few going back, Grado being one where it was storyline and it was part of something else. But yeah, it looks like Macklin, and you look at his Twitter post as well. He put out his email address, like saying
Yeah,
accepting bookings, which in wrestling it can always be part of something that it is a storyline or is kayfabe, but it certainly looks like on the surface Macklin has gone from TNA, and whether he shows up in AEW, perhaps you could see him being somebody that Don Callis would grab and put in his ever-growing family. But yeah, wouldn't surprise me at all if Steve makes his way over to AEW, whether that's Ring of Honor or the main roster, if you like, on Dynamite or Collision.
glad you had an issue with you Yamura, because normally that's me.
Yeah,
That's
one of the four of us can say it probably, but it's not me or you, mate.
Yeah. Well, you know what it's like with me and Japanese names. How long did it get me to get Konosuke Takeshita right?
Yeah, that's
Very
still not
long.
perfect.
They're still not perfect. I know it's not, but it was better than what I was calling him at the time. Matty, look, Macklin. This is a conundrum, I suppose, because if I'm right, he had issues in the WWE, I think, or at least his tag partner did. I'm not quite sure how he left. I can't quite remember how he left the WWE. I asked this question. We're going to ask the same question that I asked 10 Count last week about Ciampa, and we got it totally wrong because he ended up in AEW. But is it better for Macklin, do you think, to perhaps explore the Indies, maybe even NWA, because they're not necessarily contracted there? They can still do other things given the depth of the roster on AEW and given the fact that I'm not personally quite sure what the relationship is with WWE, is it better for Macklin maybe to do what Karrion Cross or Killer Cross has done and go on to the Indies and MLW, Hog Wrestling, and things like that?
I think his firing or release of from WWE is very sour to him, and he has made a point on that many times in interviews. Um, I think his tag partner said some really bad things, and then they hope all of them. He's being loyal, and then he got released. I am a big advocate of the Matt Cardona syndrome, where you Macklin is such a great name that he can go on the indies and make himself a bigger brand, just like Matt Cardona, like Killer Cross is doing. And he can be a real big asset to GCW, MWL. You could come over here and go on Progress or Ref Pro, or it'd just be amazing. Some of the shows he could do there. He's a massive, massive name, and I think he needs to go off in the Indies and stay on the Indies for a good year, like Cardona did, because if he goes to AEW, he'll be in the Don Callis family, and then he'll be on Ring of Honor, and then he'll potentially in 4 years' time be in WWE and on NXT.
Wow. Well, if he's going over here and he wants a title shot, I mean, he can walk right into Ignite. We've got a championship, Dave, that we could he
Love you,
could
Steve.
Well, there you go, Steve. If you fancy a fight over here in the UK, bring yourself down to Shenley Road. We'll happily give you that opportunity. I'm sure my champion will be delighted with me saying that right now. But Steve, talking about Macklin quickly before we move on, it, for me, that's a bigger loss to TNA than them getting rid of Eric Young, in my opinion. I think that they had a big loss with the Rascals. Granted, they got one back from these, from what was going on there, and they have signed and re-signed a lot of talent, which tends to be the TNA cycle. But how big of a loss is Macklin to TNA?
Well, I think it's a huge loss. Um, like you said, where it came down between him and Eric Young, I really think losing Eric Young would have been a bigger loss for them.
Really?
Because his mind for wrestling is just insane,
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
and
you're
I
right.
really think that's what they're banking on is that they keep their relationship with him, and eventually when he's ready to retire, he moves into a producer role.
Yeah, if he isn't already doing something like that backstage with TNA, that's for
Right.
sure. He may be doing that already. I'm sure he's doing something like that. But oh, Dave, we've got to talk of the Royal Rumble now. This is going to be a bundle of laughs. Before we get to that, though, Dave, Drew and Sammy had their match at the Royal Rumble. Pretty much, I think only one yeah, it was only I Love Wrestling and the team up there that chose Sammy to pick up the victory there. Um, Sammy's first loss in Saudi Arabia. He's never beaten Drew McIntyre. So hear me out here. Hear me out. I'm not saying that Drew holds the championship for a calendar year, but I'm saying night one, WrestleMania next year, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Sami Zayn beats Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Mm. Yeah, they could well build to that. Obviously, you're taking a bit of a risk. I know we like long-term stories, but in terms of injuries and stuff, that's by no means a given. But that might be something that they've outlined, something they want to do. I think a few people anticipated that Sammy might reappear in the men's Rumble match. Um, yeah, I saw that like rumor doing the rounds, but there's been a lot of rumors surrounding this Rumble, and people that may or may not be involved. And yeah, that was one of the things that might have got a good reaction given where it was. Sammy kind of coming back and winning the Rumble. Don't know how that would have gone down across the board, but that didn't happen. I think Drew retaining was the right move. I pretty, to be honest, in all of the results of the matches, I'm all right with. Um, I think Gunther AJ we've discussed that was a pretty good match, and I like that Gunther was still selling the effects of the match when he came down in the number 30 spot. I really enjoyed actually the majority of the women's Rumble match. I thought that was much better than the men's. I think it really did elevate people. I think Sol Ruka looked great. She's getting a lot of the headlines. Um, she was put in a spot where you could tell that the company trusted her, and I think a lot of her. I'm guessing that Tyson Kidd was one of the producers for that match because he's done a lot of great work with the women's division. In regards to who produced the men's, I don't know, but we'll get into it. I'll let the boys talk a little bit about what they thought about the Sammy situation and what the future holds for Sammy before we absolutely tear strips off this men's Rumble match.
Sami Zayn, Steve, Drew McIntyre. Was it a foregone conclusion that Drew was going to walk out of here? Because Drew's been notorious with short title reigns. So the fact that he did walk out, we know now that he's more than likely going to be going to WrestleMania to main event one of their shows. But is it plausible what I said earlier on, Sami Zayn winning the World Championship next year at WrestleMania?
Now, I don't think it was a foregone conclusion that Drew was going to retain just because they were in Saudi and Saudi loves Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
I could have really seen this match going either way. My heart was saying Sami Zayn, but my brain was saying Drew McIntyre. As far as WrestleMania 27, Sammy walking out with the title, I don't think I could agree with you more, Adam.
Okay, we'll see what happens. But Matt, like with this, with Drew, is it about time that the WWE give? I know he was the pandemic champion and he done a great job doing it during then, and he never really had that moment with the crowd that he's getting now as champion. And perhaps he goes on to WrestleMania and lose. We'll get into that in a minute. But do you think WWE should give him a decent run as world champion, given the fact that he did carry him through those pandemic times?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. For a guy who, at this precise moment, I think is a bigger heel than Gunther. Especially what he did in the Royal Rumble to Cody. Um, is he's worked his arse off for the last 6 years, especially for a pandemic. He's beaten the best through that pandemic, and he's now got a title, which I think he'll probably keep until probably about SummerSlam. And it just needs he just needs a really good opponent. Not the same opponents, but bigger, young opponents like a Jacob Fatu. I would not mind seeing Drew McIntyre versus Jacob Fatu, or I would say build up. I was really pissed off the way they treat Phoenix yesterday. So I'll give Phoenix, build up Phoenix for the next 6 months and then have him against Drew. It's just they need to build up more opponents for Drew because the babyface are at the moment a bit dull.
Yeah, I mean, you could have threw. There's about a dozen people that come out of that Royal Rumble looking like shit. To be quite honest with you, Dave, you mentioned Sol Ruka, great showing. One other woman that had in my opinion, David had a great showing, Lash Legend, and you can clearly see, like you said with Sol Ruka, you can clearly see that they feel as if she's going to be a bit of money for them going forward as well.
Yeah, there are certainly more examples in the women's match than the men's. I think the booking of Ray Phoenix was disgusting.
Yeah,
Rusev, disgusting. Matt
yeah.
Cardona. I mean, I've got a bit of a graphic up on the screen here, not so much talking about like eliminations, but just the amount of time that people were in the match. Matt Cardona was in for 55 seconds. Rusev was in for 32 seconds. Um, yeah, and I get that you're building up over Femi, and he looked great, but that doesn't need to be to the detriment of the other performers in the match. There's a way of booking a Rumble where everybody, it improves their standing on the roster and in the company. Yes, you might have a couple of comedy guys in there. We saw Mr. Iguana, but he got 2 minutes. When you're looking at and from what I understand, I didn't watch SmackDown. But didn't Phoenix have a really good singles match on SmackDown?
Carmelo
And then you
Hayes.
come off back of SmackDown, you put him in the Rumble, and you give him, what did Phoenix get? 28 seconds. And, that booking as well wasn't limited to those guys. Brock Lesnar was eliminated after 5 minutes during Jey Uso's entrance.
They were running it
Um,
back. They were running his entrance back.
well, they did the run back, and then they did another run back moment with Reigns, which just looked clunky and just horrible. But yeah, before I blow a gasket, like as you said, Sol Ruka, Lash Legend, it was nice to see. Tiffany Stratton back, even Brie Bella. That was a decent moment. You had a few nice bits with Nikki. Didn't mind that at all. Yeah, I much preferred the women's match, and if you just break down the times in the match, there was no one really that was in for less than, looking here, everyone got, even Candice LeRae had a couple of minutes, but majority, 10 minutes plus. But yeah, this men's rumble, it just looked like it was thrown together very last minute. Um, really, really poor. Again, interested to know what Matty and Steve made of it. I mean, we did have a few eliminations that could lead onto singles matches, could even lead to WrestleMania matches when you look at Obafemi and Brock Lesnar, maybe. But on the whole, it absolutely stunk the place out, I thought, that match.
Indeed, Matt, I want great point there. You mentioned about eliminations and how they affect one of the biggest ones in the women's that was maybe a bit of a shocker, but it's going to have some kind of repercussions tomorrow on Raw. Was Liv Morgan eliminating Raquel Rodriguez, her stablemate? Now, don't get me wrong, Liv Morgan, she's been the nearly girl in the Royal Rumble. You saw her actually. What you did, maybe what you haven't seen, is her crying when she goes off and the cameras go away from her on that. So fully deserved, Matt, in my opinion, Liv winning as well. But there's an elimination there. Is that going to start the catalyst to maybe Liv or someone, maybe Raquel, leaving the Judgment Day?
I totally agree with you that Liv fully deserved it. The bridesmaid, but never the bride, but now she is the bride. Um, I was really shocked. What was more shocked off was not just the elimination, but her reaction.
Mm.
She laughed in Raquel's face. That and Raquel's eyes was focused on Liv. So
Mm.
everything is on for Monday Night Raw. I think this is going to be one of my must-see Monday Night Raws just for the women's title. Because if we do get a new women's champion, we could see the end of Judgment Day tomorrow night, and I'm kind of hoping for it anyway. But if not, um, we could have a triple threat or could have those kind of matches at WrestleMania. But I do think at WrestleMania there will be a Liv and Raquel situation.
Definitely. So, Steve, who does Liv choose, in your opinion, to go against at WrestleMania?
Sorry, having some computer problems.
No?
Now I I totally believe that Raquel wins that women's championship, and Liv chooses Raquel.
Interesting. Well, we'll find out on Monday Night Raw. Bella Twins, as Dave mentioned, are back full time apparently as well. And an interesting one, David, just quickly, just for you, this one. Bully Ray tweeted about
Or
this.
yeah,
You saw it, saying
yeah.
Danielson is next.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. When Brie entered into the women's match, it did make me think, oh, maybe we see Danielson in the men's match. But no, I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. Or he has disappeared from commentary in AEW though, so
Mhm.
which again like fed into that doubt. Um, I mean, as a huge wrestling fan across the board, I I would never begrudge Brian Danielson, that return, if he was booked correctly. But looking at some of the guys that have gone from AEW recently to WWE, I'm sure he looks at that and think, yeah, I'm happy where I am actually.
Yeah, quite possibly. Right, let's get to the nooks and crannies of this shit show that was the men's. Was it me, Dave, or did that countdown timer go off as soon as the person entered the ring?
Yeah, that was another thing that's been picked up online, how quickly. Even in case of, as I said, as we spoke about Lesnar, Jay was still making his entrance. Um, Yeah, it just I don't know, man. I don't know whether it was the whole pacing of the show and it kind of forced those entries to be closer together than they normally are. But it just didn't let anything breathe. It was kind of like you're playing a video game and you've kind of set you've made the entries, you've changed the settings, so you've made it so that people are entering quicker. And yeah, I don't know whether that's something overran or what? Because it was only the four matches on the card, wasn't there?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that might have played into why it was why I felt it was such a poor Rumble match. Maybe if we'd have had the men's match first and they didn't have those timing issues, then it could have been a better, and they've had to cut things out, and that's affected the quality of the match. But yeah, you're totally right, and that's something that, as I say, people are talking about online.
I don't think they had to cut anything. I think the women's was just as bad in terms of timings. That was they were barely in the ring. I think sometimes it went a bit longer than what it needed to, but I was literally had a stopwatch on, and one of them was something like 18 seconds between the wrestler hitting the ring and the countdown.
What you've got now, and like obviously there was quite a long runway. You go back to old Rumbles when it was MSG in places like that. It's very short distance for them coming through the curtain to being in the ring. So maybe that kind of caused an issue. I don't think there was any need for Jey Uso to enter from the crowd. I know that's his thing, and they wanted the pop and they wanted the arena doing it. But the Rumbles like different rules, and I don't necessarily think we needed to do that. I certainly don't think we needed the running back and the moment with Roman. I just think that was I didn't enjoy that at all. Um, so yeah, I mean, the one thing I did enjoy, and I want to say this because I want to give the boys plenty of opportunity to say what they thought about the match. As much as I've complained about it, and I think a lot of the guys were booked poorly, I think Javon Evans had a good showing. I think they did a good job with him, and that's kind of wetted the whistle, if you like, to potential matches that he'll be having on the main roster. I think the fan base want to see a lot more of Javon either on Raw or SmackDown. So yeah, as negative as and down as I am on the match, that was a positive for me.
Yeah, definitely so. Matt, we'll talk about the elimination that I think you kind of alluded to. Cody Rhodes eliminated by Drew McIntyre, who's not even in the Royal Rumble. Claymore kicked him as he tried to skin the cat. Has that given away? Because we now, what we did know, or what was announced before the Royal Rumble, was that the winners of the elimination, the retrospective men's and women's elimination chamber, would get a shot at the championship, the other championship that isn't selected by the winner. Did they give that away, or are they kind of maybe telling us this story, but then Roman kind of done what The Rock does to him, done it before, and chooses McIntyre and then leaves Cody to go with Punk at WrestleMania? What match for you is more of the money match, shall I say?
Um, there's two versions of this for particular fans. Though I think the hardcore fans, like the ones that know all the stories and stuff, wants it Roman versus CM Punk, and the other kind of fans that are just casual fans just want Roman versus Drew because he's on SmackDown. I think the bigger money is Roman versus Punk, and I think at Elimination Chamber we get the likes of Cody, Jacob, and I think Sami Zayn will be in that.
Yeah,
And then I I got a gut feeling in that Elimination Chamber we'll get another Sami versus Drew at WrestleMania. That's
maybe.
that's what I think. But going on what David said, it was a piss poor Royal Rumble. It was
Yeah,
you did not need Drew McIntyre to do a Claymore onto Cody because already that's just him eliminate his elimination because of Drew. Then Drew's distracting Jacob, and then Roman eliminates Jacob. It was just stupid, and it's the same story, same bullshit. And they had a chance to be really creative, and they fucked it.
they definitely shit the bed in
Yeah.
this Royal Rumble. That's for sure. Steve, just touching on a slight aside from this, because there was a return that everyone's expecting that didn't happen at the Royal Rumble. We still don't know when or if it's going to happen. But do you anticipate seeing a certain countdown clock on the screen soon in the WWE and Chris Jericho returning, or is there something else on the horizon for him?
I think we definitely get Jericho returning. However, I don't think it's going to be for a while. I'm thinking more around WrestleMania. I know I follow his band Fozzy very
Mhm.
closely. They're about to go on tour.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a big reason why he didn't re-debut last night. I think we're going to probably get closer to Elimination Chamber, WrestleMania. Then we'll see the countdown clock start.
Yeah, my gut feeling says the Raw after WrestleMania because they haven't done a really good one in a while, Dave. We'll just finish up with you on this one, Dave. Is that for you the most ideal place now for Jericho? Because I think they're touring for a few months, if memory serves me right. I'm pretty sure they're coming over here as well. Do you see Jericho's return on that Raw after WrestleMania? Is that something feasible, or do they do an open challenge and Jericho, like United, Carmelo Hayes, and United States Open Challenge, and Jericho answers the challenge?
Yeah, well, as you know, we've spoke about it for months. I anticipated seeing Jericho at this Rumble. I thought that was
Mhm.
how he was going to re-debut in the WWE. But interestingly, and that's something that I only kind of became aware of over the last few days, he is still listed on the AEW roster
Is. Mhm.
on the website. So everyone presumes his deal was up at the end of 2025, but we don't know for sure whether that contract has ended or when it ends. Um, Now, I think the best thing for Jericho is for him to be back in WWE. I think that would be a great way to round off his career. Maybe that includes a Hall of Fame induction as well.
Mhm.
Whether that can happen this year or whether that would be next year after a bit of a run, back in the ring. Because, we've saw Jericho last year and, in recent years, maybe he's lost half a step, but he's still pretty good in the ring. He's still had some compelling matches. I don't think some of his character work came across as well as some of his previous characters and reincarnations of himself. Some people enjoyed the learning tree. I think we enjoyed it at times. There were bits and pieces that were quite entertaining. I was one of those that did enjoy it with Big Bill and Brian Keefe. I thought there's some good stuff in there, and it's a shame that it's got cut. Um, we didn't really get a conclusion to that. We didn't really get that the finish, the Big Bill versus Jericho big match. Um, yeah, I'm going around the houses here. I still expect Jericho to return, but like Steve said, with a Fozzy tour, and he's been doing something. I think he's been in a TV show as well because the timing was impeccable as Jericho always does. He kind of put out a tweet after the Rumble, promoting Margot's Got Money, which is on Apple TV. So I know that was a bit of a troll move from Jericho. Like people like, what the hell happened? Where was he? And then he's promoting something else. But yeah, I'm certain at some point over the next few months we'll be seeing Chris back in the WWE.
I think so too. Good way. With first finish on a bit more of a positive note after that absolute crap we just witnessed last night. But
One thing I'd like to know from the boys as well as yourself, Ed, who was the man behind the mask? My prediction,
oh,
Logan
sorry.
Paul, but I'll let
Yes,
you guys discuss that. I think it's going to be Logan, and he's going to play it into something bigger with him and Bron Breakker.
I tend to agree. I just think, and I said this to the boys before we started, that sometimes the WWE will have many people behind the mask before the eventual person. I think when they last done this with Austin Theory, Montez Ford was behind the mask. They've done a couple of different people, the same sort of stature. And then it was revealed to be the obvious choice, Austin Theory. I did notice during the Royal Rumble that Logan Paul did have some marks under his eye. Now, I initially thought they were black eyes, but when someone that zoomed in on Logan's face, you could clearly see the blackness of the mask and these very much the mannerisms. So I'm in very much agreement with you that it was Logan Paul last night. Steve, I'll throw it open to you. WWE do have the habit of not necessarily sticking with the first person behind the mask. Do you think it is Logan, or was he just used last night before they do a reveal at a later date to be somebody else? You are on mute, Steve, unless you're off mute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Now, my thoughts on it is that they stick with it being Logan. And this turns into a storyline where he and Theory were both sent by Seth Rollins, and to get revenge on Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and Paul Heyman. I believe this turns into a new stable featuring the three of them.
Interesting. That is interesting
Oh,
because, yeah, on Raw, because it was definitely Logan Paul was the one on Raw saying, Braun Breaker, we gotta, he's the one that we've got to win. And I did think it was a bit strange because I always thought that that's not Logan Paul because he would have been all about him, Matt, wouldn't it? And I thought that they were going to throw a bit of a spanner in the works, and if anyone's going to win the Royal Rumble, it's going to be me. And I thought that was what his line was going to be, but it wasn't. He said, if anyone's going to win the Royal Rumble, it has to be Braun Breaker. My only sort of thing about this is they've only recently done this with Austin Theory, where he was the masked man, and then they went to the Vision with this one. Are they doing too much too soon with this instead of longing this out a bit longer and having those four as a big unit, and then maybe Seth coming back? Is it things going a bit too quickly on this?
Absolutely. I think some WWE creativity is kind of they're thinking that wrestling fans remember it's only 24 hours and that's it. So they're literally just going to keep on going 100 miles an hour and not giving it any like space to breathe. Um, I totally agree with Steve that it's going to be Logan Paul and Austin Theory because I don't know if you guys watched the kickoff on the Friday before SmackDown.
No.
Michael Cole asked them about would you like if there was an opportunity down to you guys, you're the top, last two, will you eliminate Breaker? And none of them said anything until Bronson Reed did. So both Theory and Logan were very quiet about eliminating Breaker. So I do think we're going to see someone probably around March that is going to be the reveal of the mask guy. I think it's going to be Seth. They'll just lose Logan Paul. Then we might see Montez back again, and then we're yeah, they're just going to try to spur us for the next 2 months, and then it's going to be a massive reveal on a Monday Night Raw, some big city on Monday night.
That's going to be interesting. I just want to break away quickly before we finish because I've just read, and this is Brit Rest related to a degree. Those of you that know All In will know that there is a Revolution Pro anniversary show happening at the OVO in Wembley,
I just saw this.
and FTR have been challenged by
wow.
Luke Jacobs and Ethan Allen for the Wembley show, and you can't see my arms, but they have just got goosebumps just saying that phrase. There is reasons I'm not a Rev Pro fan that I'm not going to say about on this channel, but you guys may be wary why, because I was talking about it before we started. However, that in itself is going to be really, really good. Anyway, I just saw that and I had to. I know that you looked at our good friend Gary Joe's bit and you've hearted it or whatever, so that you would have known. But that's going to be a hell of a match. Anyway, let's start wrapping up, guys. Look, Matt, Steve, what have you got? What's happening on your channel? Where can people reach Wrestling Pedigree, please?
With Wrestling Pedigree, you can find us on Facebook and TikTok with just typing in Wrestling Pedigree. On Instagram and YouTube, it's Wrestling Pedigree 92. And we have a show just after this one. So this tonight, on Sunday night, we have Wrestling Pedigree Unsung Heroes of the Attitude Era, which kind of plays in with me and Steve, where we pick which some of the unsung heroes, like Too Cool, like Val Venis, like Ken Shamrock. Um, I think Steve's favorite. I think is Owen Hart, stuff like that. So yeah, we got a lot to chat about, and we like the nostalgia once a week, better than the shit we saw last night.
I can't. I can't. Well, I'm going to check it. I will check it out when it's out. Big thanks for Matty and Steve for coming on, guys. Make sure you check out the Wrestling Pedigree. Dave, we're going to make a change to our schedule next week because I'm off on a jet plane. We'll be doing This Week in Wrestling on Saturday next week. But Dave, I always give you the beauty of the serenading us off the air in your delightful Kenny Omega way. So please do not disappoint.
Yeah, I'll hit the line, but big dynamite this week and a big rematch. Andrade one-on-one with Kenny. I cannot wait for that match. I think it's going to be great. But for now, it's time to bid you all adieu. Goodbye. Mwah. Good night. Bang.
Stay safe, everybody.